Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Tech Tok.
I'm Roy for the tech.
And I'm Earl for the talk.
So guys, we are now on our 9th episode and we are this December. So that means we're on the last month of 2020.
And you know what that means? Pasko na!
Pasko na.
Pasko na. Pasko na. Boom,
Lyrics,
boom,
lyrics,
tarat.
lyrics. Boom, tarat, tarat. Boom, tarat, tarat.
Tarat.
This be a kuya wheel moment.
It
Yeah.
truly be a willy moment. You know what else is true, Roy? Na ngayon, na Pasko na, nagtatago na lahat ng mga tito at tita natin dyan, Roy. Ahehi, nagtatago na sila.
Divisoria time. Yes. The titos and titas coming home for the holidays, you know. But coming home doesn't just apply for those Christmas aguinaldos. Bigyan ng 5,000, please.
Bigyan ng 5,000.
Yeah, I kind of want the new monitor. Hey, ops.
Don't debali, Roy.
Other than that, those Christmas homecoming things could also apply to schools and not just, welcome back to class things, but also, the alumni, the alumnus, and employees. So,
Speaking of which, let's kick off the banter section of this podcast with a good old iACADEMY event called I Am Home. Alright, so Roy, what do you know about I Am Home? Can you tell our wonderful listeners something about it?
okay, so as far as I know, I Am Home is basically, well, like what I said earlier, it's a kind of a homecoming where, alumnus, the alumni,
Yep, people who used to study, people who
Yeah.
studied before in iACADEMY just go
then-
back for the holidays and stuff if they want to study again.
yeah, it's either that or they become employees.
Mm-hmm.
Or employees who what do you call that, who transferred, who resigned and took up another job and then come back.
Yep. The I Am Home event features that iACADEMY always welcome back its former employees or students with open arms because after all, iACADEMY will always be your home.
Kind of heartwarming, like Christmas.
Yeah, just like Christmas. And in spirit of the holiday, iACADEMY welcomes all those alumni back with open arms. So if you're an alumni or a former employee looking for a job or you just need a place to stay or hang out, iACADEMY is always the place to be.
Let's do it. Let's go.
Alright, so that's enough about that. Now let's move on to the real meat and bones, the sinigang of our podcast, as I always said before, the tech section. Now that it's
And
Christmas.
what do you have for this?
For this. This has been a long time coming, ever since it was released. It has something to do with Microsoft and Sony's latest console, the PS5 and the Xbox Series X and S. Alright, so
That's
the
not
joke for
confusing,
this, the joke for this year is that a washing machine, a mini fridge, and a router are going to battle it out to see who's the best console on the block, alright? And since it's Christmas, everyone's gonna be waiting in line to get their hands on these new products, these new consoles with these wonderful performances. And I'm gonna tell you a little bit about that, Roy. So first, let's start.
Yeah, come on.
Alright,
Lay it on us.
Alright, first we're gonna talk about the PS5. From our wonderful researcher Sergey Magno, I love you, bud. He gave us a lot of talking points about the PS5. One of the most unique things about the PS5 is that it uses liquid metal as a thermal solution for the processor instead of normal means. That means it doesn't use a fan, it doesn't use water cooling, it uses a liquid metal as its thermal solution for the processor.
Okay,
That
okay.
means-
Can I interject here?
Sure.
Is
sure.
that the reason? Is that the reason why the PS5's heatsink is chonky?
Yup.
Chonky. Yep.
The heatsink is absolutely massive. Okay, so if you've ever seen what a
Absolute
radiator
unit.
looks like, it looks like they fit in a small radiator in that console. Like, if you've ever watched the PS5 teardown video, I found it funny that the heatsink was that big. In fact, if you were to take it out, you could probably hit someone over the head with it and cause massive damage, dude. Just bonk them. All right, but
Bonk. Just nothing to be fixed by a little old flex tape.
all right. So for those of you who don't know what a heatsink is, you should. A heatsink is basically a place where all of the heat is gathered up and also dispersed out. Usually a fan or usually an exit point. But the point is, like, its main function is just to absorb and disperse heat. So that's all you really need to know about it. They're usually not that big. They're usually like medium sized or small. But for the PS5, again, it's just massive.
Chonky.
And you can, yeah, it's just absolutely chunky, dude. And now let's go back to the processor and the liquid metal solution it uses. It should normally be impossible because usually for like the top of the line processor like manufacturers, they usually either use water cooling or like really high powered fans to cool their processors. But for some reason, Sony figured out how to use liquid metal, as in iron or whatever metal it was, melted down as its liquid solution as a cooling method. And for me, the fact that they were able to do that is just outstanding, dude. You know
Dare I say, game changing.
Absolutely, yeah. It's game changing, dude. Like, absolutely. Are you sure that there's no one at Sony from iACADEMY? Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. All right.
Wink, 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 wink.
All right. And just to talk a little bit more about it, like, the fact that it uses liquid metal means like it shouldn't even be possible because how are you supposed to keep liquid in a metal state without keeping it heated? Diba? That's usually like in science class, everyone knows that a metal has a certain melting point, and in order for it to solidify, it needs to reach another like threshold, right? So the fact that the metal is able to stay as a liquid, and Sony figured out how to make it as a cooling solution and to keep it in a liquid form is just how, dude. All right, I feel like
it's groundbreaking. It's game changing. It's really just wow.
Yeah, just wow, dude.
Kinda want one.
Alright, so moving on from the processor, another thing I want to talk about, Roy, is you know how it's so hard to always clean the dust off of your consoles, especially if they're like, especially if they get into your console itself. You have to tear it apart and blow dust out, or you know, you gotta wipe it because you can't just wipe it with a rag, right, Roy?
Yeah. In my case, with my Switch, since it's sitting in its dock for most of the time, just blow it out. Just blow it.
You gotta get like a can of air or just blow it out manually. So the one another thing that makes the PS5 stand out is for the fact that it has a dust catcher built in the back. So that means there are like 3 holes there built specifically for you to be able to clean out the internals of your console. Yeah. That means if you have a vacuum cleaner, you just put it on top of that hole and it'll suck out all of the dust. Yeah, it'll suck out all of that dust. And when I was actually talking about this with one of our researchers, Roy, I asked him if won't that suck out the internals as well. Like that's been a huge worry of mine because if you just do it willy nilly, it could cause damage. But no, he assured me that Sony go on, Roy.
Since it's purpose built just for that, I kinda think that you don't really need to worry about it that much.
Yeah. That's what he told me, and now you're telling me that too, because Sony manufactured it in a way that it won't do that. It's specifically built to catch dust. Like all of that allocated dust congests in that one point, and you just need to suck that all up. So cleaning your console's internals is now a breeze. You don't need to study up or watch a video about how to open up your PS4 or your PS5, and then see how to clean it properly, because now you could just put your vacuum cleaner on top of the hole and 1, 2, 3, you're done. Now that's what I call convenience.
Just don't let your robot vacuum cleaner do the sucking.
Yep, just do not put a Roomba on top of it because results may vary, alright?
Results may vary and it may be stuck in a cliff.
Oh yeah, I know it's a little late to be saying this now, but again, there's a disclaimer we have to say here. The opinions of like the podcasters, like the hosts of this podcast, are not necessarily the opinions and the views of the school itself or like the publisher. It's just it's based on basically that I have to put that disclaimer in because I forgot to do it earlier, and it's important.
Yeah,
right?
Of course.
All right.
Of course,
so,
since it's just us. It's not beholden to the school.
Yep, absolutely. Alright, so moving on. Now let's talk about the optimization of the PS5 for SSDs. Roy, this is going to be one of the most important points that I can tell you about the PS5, is that how optimized its SSD ports are and how you can expand like this your drive space with different types of SSDs.
Can't wait. Even though I probably won't buy
Alright.
one.
Alright, so SSD, for all of you non-techies out there, stands for solid state drive. And what this does is it's basically this small rectangle that fetches your files at a really fast rate. The problem with it though is it has limited storage space. But the one thing of why they're so attractive, and usually why people store their OS in it, is so that it's because it's really fast. So don't think that this is a permanent replacement for HDD, because an HDD and an SSD both have different functions. All right.
Yeah, advantages and disadvantages. So why MMV or mileage may vary.
Yeah, mileage may vary. It's completely up to you. So the PS5's SSD. Roy, don't you hate it when you just run out of space for your console?
I mean, if you're talking about my Switch, it's basically like 10% full. So can't relate. But if you're talking about my computer, let me see my computer's storage.
Alright, that's close enough, because if you think about it, a console is a type of PC.
Well, yeah, that just plays games.
Yeah, that just plays games. Like that.
My SSD is currently 351 gigs free of 446 gigs. So around 15% full, 15 to 20. But let me check my laptop.
Alright, Roy, you go and check your laptop. Tell us how much space you got left on that bad boy.
22.4 gigs free of 104. This is like 75 to 80% full. My god.
Alright,
Oh my
Roy.
God. Yeah.
Okay, so I want to tell you about the PS5's SSDs. Right now, the last time I checked with the PS5's SSD ports, it says that there aren't many SSDs that are compatible with it. So that means I think
that's why they're updating it constantly.
Yeah, they're updating it constantly so that you'd be able to use pretty much any SSD on the market, especially the Samsung ones, on your PS5 without worry. And the good thing about this is, since it's SSD, the SSD slots are so optimized, it basically puts it on par with other top-of-the-line PC or other top-of-the-line gaming rigs, battle stations, or whatever you want to call it. And that's basically what makes another thing that makes the PS5 so special, is for the fact that you don't need to buy yes, it has a small amount of storage space, maybe 500 GB if you're lucky. But what makes it so unique is for the fact that you can keep expanding that space with SSDs, and you don't really have to worry about space at that point, because just buy an SSD, plug it in, and you're good to go.
Yeah, until the next COD comes out and it eats up your entire SSD anyway.
Yep, and it just eats up your entire SSD anyway. Again, mileage may vary. So next is the adaptive triggers on the controllers. Now this is something I'm amazed by, alright? I mean, it's nothing new since controllers have always had this technology, but my monkey brain just really appreciates it, alright? I like this level of detail in the controllers. So the haptic feedback on your controllers, on the PS5's controllers, is very noticeable in FPS games, and even in one of their release titles, the new Demon Souls Remastered.
You're just saying, oh, it vibrates better.
Yep, more or less. That's basically it. It just vibrates better. But I can tell you that the reason why, for me, it's a good thing that the controllers have this, the way it vibrates is much more different than the PS4. Because in this case, for example, you're playing Call of Duty or your Apex, PUBG, Fortnite Legends or something, right?
Fortnite Legends.
Basically, you're playing any FPS game, alright? If you get shot to the right, let's say a bullet passes you on the right, your controller will vibrate on the right side just a little bit, all right? And if you get shot a bullet grazes you on the left, the controller vibrates on the left a little bit. And whenever you press a trigger, there is a bit of resistance. You're actually pulling the trigger of the gun. And for me, this is why I like it, alright? Even if it's just vibrations, it's so immersive. And also for one of the release titles, Demon Souls, it also does the same thing. Let's say a boss swings at you to the right and or to the left. It'll either vibrate right or left depending on where the swing went. And if you're hit, it'll vibrate, let's say you get shot on the right, it hits you on your right side. It'll vibrate strongly on the right and vice versa. That's why I like the controller so much. And aside from that, according to a lot of reviews that I've watched on this, Roy, the controller just feels so much better to hold. Because usually, it's good.
Ergonomics is, yeah.
Yeah, I know,
That's what I see. Yeah. Yeah,
Yep.
that's what I see.
You know, sometimes like, yeah, it's cool that the controller can vibrate, right? Like that's pretty cool, but how does it feel? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, it's the same thing with phones. Like they would say, the vibrator motor here is not good. Like like whenever I see them, it feels like only iPhones have a vibrator that actually, you know, is actually good to the touch.
and
I
usually,
guess I guess I could say the same because I have God knows why I bought a 5-year-old iPhone this 2020, but yeah, I really can feel it.
yeah, you can just feel like the ergonomics plus the vibration just feels it. Like those two things are very important because
Yeah,
yes,
haptic feedback is really important,
yep.
especially for consoles. I mean,
yeah, I mean,
if it's really important for phones, what more with consoles?
exactly. Especially if like you're using the controller. Like yeah, it's cool it has haptic feedback, but it needs to be ergonomic as well because if it's just awkward to hold, then that's not a good controller. All right. All right. Now,
What do you wait? What do you call those controllers for Tekken?
for Tekken, you mean the fight sticks? You mean the one with buttons
Oh
on
yeah,
them, like
yeah.
the old time
now
arcades?
imagine if that's how big and clunky your game controller is.
Yeah, and like you have to
Yeah.
like hold it on the sides. All right. The good thing about in defense of fight sticks, all right. Like I may not be a fight stick aficionado. Shout out to that group on Facebook. But fight sticks are really good to like use, especially during fighting games. And if I remember, like the one thing that's good about fight sticks is that you can actually customize it to like your preference. But enough about fight sticks. Let's talk
Yeah,
about.
and that's not really my point. I'm just saying, imagine if you have to use a fight stick for a flight simulator.
Yeah, then,
Why-
then
like, why?
absolutely why,
Why?
dude? Like why? All right, I can understand that point. All right, so now let's move on to the mini fridge and the speaker, the Xbox Series X and the Xbox Series S. All right,
Nice name.
all right. Here's
Xbox
a little.
Series.
All right, let's start with the X first. All right, the mini fridge. You know, the black mini fridge. All right, or basically SpongeBob being the marble. All right, or Square
the
Tom.
monolith. The
Yeah,
monolith that's been appearing, everywhere.
Alright, so here's a disclaimer. Do not blow smoke into your Xbox Series X or it'll damage the internals because of the heat. Alright, some guy on social media thought that was a good idea and Microsoft themselves had to message on the post itself that, hey, please do not blow smoke into your Xbox Series X. I can't believe we still have to say this.
Yeah, it's good for the memes, and yes, it really does look like an air purifier more than the PS5 is.
Yep.
But then he broke it, so
He broke it, and here's the thing: it's still a Series X. It's still hard to get your hands on these new like top of the line consoles because for one, they're not cheap. Two is that they're not even shipped shipped out in the Philippines until maybe like later on mid-December. And three is that especially if you're in the US, there's a lot of like scalpers that are trying to get their hands on it.
yes, destroying your $500 console for the memes.
Yep. Was it worth it? Of course it wasn't. All right. So let's talk about the Xbox. All right. The specs on the Xbox is outstanding. All right. It has a good processor. It has a good graphics card, and basically all you need to know is that they're pretty similar in performance to the PS5. But what makes Xbox so special, at least in my opinion, is the quick resume feature. Do you know about that, Roy?
No.
All right.
I don't really follow consoles that much.
Oh, you're
but
in
I
for a
am-
treat. You are in
Yeah.
for a treat. Okay, so you know when you're playing a game, you have to wait, click a button, wait for it to load, and then go to the start screen, click another button, wait for the game to load for a few minutes, and then you actually get to play. Now with the quick resume feature, it eliminates the need for you to wait. You just need to press what game you want to play, and if you've been playing it before, it's just going to immediately jump you back right into the game. No loading screens, no waiting, just immediately back into the action without any waiting. It only takes a few seconds as opposed to a few minutes. All right, Roy, that's how far we've come in technology. The point that
That's actually really good.
they eliminated the need for loading screens. That means that you won't need to worry about waiting forever to play the new Cyberpunk 2077. Wink, wink.
Wink, wink. No
Alright.
waiting needed.
And
Definitely.
believe me, there's a lot of applicability here. Imagine like you're playing a game and like inutusan ka ng dado ng nanay mo na bumili ng suka doon sa tindahan, ang pwede mo gawin is, kunyari matatagalan ka. Instead na pause mo, pwede mo isarado kasi kunyari ayaw mo mag-sign ng kuryente or something, right? I'm just making up a theoretical scenario here. Tapos bumili ka ng suka, bumalik ka. Ngayon, sarado siya. You can just open it back up, get into the game that you've been playing, like just start up the game that you were playing before and be back to playing the actual game within just seconds, all right? Not minutes, seconds.
Seconds.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And in fact, a lot of reviewers have said that you just like compared to like the startup of the PS5, the Xbox beats it in that sense that it just starts up a lot of games a little faster than the PS5, but that's about it. Like especially with the quick resume feature, like that's the one thing like the Xbox has over the PS5 is for the fact that you can just start up a game you were playing before and go back to playing it within minutes. And for me, that's just revolutionary because no more loading screens and you're back to playing the actual game itself within seconds.
I kind of want to experience that myself, but
It's expensive.
it's expensive. I don't think
Oh,
I'm going to
mahirap.
bother.
Medyo mahirap
I don't-
ngayon.
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to bother buying a console at all since I barely play games that much, and it's usually just either PC games or the occasional Switch games.
All right.
Yeah.
Speaking of performance features and like quick stuff, let's talk about the design language and why it needs to be placed vertically. There's a reason why in every marketing material that Microsoft has used for their new console, it always shows the Xbox Series X and S always standing up is because it was not meant for it to be horizontal. That means it should always be standing up like a mini fridge or what you said before, Roy, an air purifier. You want to know what happens if you put it horizontally?
Probably unintentional damages.
Yes, you're absolutely right, Roy. Because unlike the PS5, it has a huge heatsink inside. Like, it's extra chonky. Like, this thing is legit.
And that's why it's like a mini fridge.
Yep, it's like a mini fridge. It has this giant slab of metal dedicated to dispersing heat. Alright? And the thing with the PS5 is, the one thing it has over the Xbox is that you can place it vertically or horizontally, and the console will be absolutely fine. But the Xbox, on the other hand, it always needs to be standing up because the manufacturer intends for you to always use it while it's standing up. Now, you can still use it if it's horizontal. Like, it's not good, like it'll still work, but it's not really intended for that. And again, like what you said before, it can cause unintentional heat damage or just damage in general because there's a lot of moving parts in there that are meant to function a certain way. So if you were to do it a little differently, like let's say if it's lying down and like all of those moving parts are trying to like communicate with each other and stuff, it could possibly damage it.
Damage them. Yeah.
Yeah, and like that's 500.
It's basically just computers in general.
Yep.
Once the computer feels that a certain data is astray, they would freak out. So it's the same thing here.
Yep, and that's $500 down the drain. Or in PH terms, 40,000 pesos, like 40 plus thousand pesos down
Wait,
the drain.
$500? That's like 25,000 pesos here.
All right, look, I can't do quick math, so yeah, around that much money down the drain. All right,
Okay.
now
Before we like move on, I just want to make another point with the Xbox Series.
I have
S
my
and X.
there's also like I forgot to mention like a few more.
is
Like
it?
this is just a bit more points. The Xbox has a Game Pass. Like there's something called the Xbox Game Pass, and what it is, it's like a monthly subscription to like basically think of it like the the Stadia, where it's just a monthly subscription to where if you subscribe to this service, you'll be able to play 100 plus games. You'll be able to download any of like 100 plus AAA games on Xbox's servers for absolutely free, and you just need to pay a monthly fee. Like it's a subscription based thing.
It's also not just for Xbox, it's also for PCs.
Yep. So if anyone out there has a top of the line PC or you have the Xbox Series X, I highly recommend you check out Xbox Game Pass because you'll be able to access a lot of free games, like almost 100 plus AAA games, like maybe even the new Cyberpunk 2077,
That comes
Outer
out,
Lands. Tekken, or pretty much any game on the market on Xbox Game Pass. So I highly recommend you check it out. And if you feel like you wanna get into you wanna play all those games without having to pay for them, then use this service because it's a more convenient option than actually going out to buy the games. And again, it saves money. All right.
True.
And here's the last thing. So for anyone out there who, people like me who still own a PS4, you don't fret not. You don't need to worry about throwing away your old disc or selling them or whatever, because the PS5 features backwards compatibility up until only the PS4. So that means, let's say you have a God of War like 4 disc and you want to play that game again, you can just slap it on the PS5 and you'll be able to play it. Same with Xbox. It has backwards compatibility. So that means it's not really confirmed yet, and I don't think there's any news on it, but they said that you might be able to play the 360 games on the Xbox Series X, or games from the Xbox One, you can play it on the Xbox Series X.
Yeah, or maybe if you just want to flex that you have the brand new console and you're just going to use it as a glorified DVD player, then go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. I mean, we won't
plays
stop you.
Blu-ray.
It's
It
your
plays
console,
Blu-ray.
so you're free to do whatever you want for it. You can even use it as an expensive doorstop if you want. Alright, so that's all I have to say about the PS5 and Xbox, and boy, I'm excited this Christmas and this year for the amount of new content, new tech, and new games we're gonna receive. Aren't you, Roy?
Yeah, and only if you get past the headache of actually, getting to buy one.
Yep, because that's always gonna be like the problem. You're trying to buy them. Alright, so anyway, let's move on. Roy, what do you have for us today, this Christmas time?
Speaking of processors and all, speaking of being game changing, we'll talk about something else that's game changing that's happening in the computer and the laptop world. Can you guess what it is?
Oh my god. Does it have to do with a tech titan?
What?
A tech titan. Sorry, my nose is blocked.
You can say yes. Yes.
Alright. Is it a fruit that you consume?
Yes, and it's also a technology company.
Alright. It's an orange, okay? Alright, go. No.
Yeah.
Alright, so yeah, I'm guessing it's Apple. So Roy, tell me what's new with Apple. What is the CEO thinking of this time? How is he gonna blow us away?
5G. No, that's
5G.
that's for the iPhones. But in being serious, it's the Apple M1 generation.
The M1 series. So Roy, what makes this beautiful new brand from
There's a
Apple?
reason why everyone is raving about this brand new chipset from Apple.
Okay, I'm gonna try and guess what it is. Is it because of the name? No, I'm just kidding. All right, do tell though. Do tell. Why are people like raving about this new technology?
Okay, first of all, Apple M1 is the name of the chip. The entire family, which encapsulates M1, is Apple Silicon.
Ooh.
Okay, and Apple Silicon is just the branding for the chips that are used for their laptops and their computers. So their Macs and MacBooks.
Roy, I didn't realize the new brand of Apple technology was that spicy. You wanna know why?
Why?
Because it's the Apple Silicon. Get it?
Oh my God. Stop.
I had to go for it. I'm sorry. All right, so continue. Roy.
All
Tell
right.
us.
Okay, the reason why this is game changing is it uses ARM.
The ARM
The
processors.
ARM architecture. ARM
Oh.
architecture. Now, why is this so special? Well, you could say it's not really that special. I mean, it's what powers our phones, low power devices, basically any IoT device you can think of.
You like your shoes. You like those.
Yeah, you could say that. Yeah, updating your shoes over the cloud line.
I'm not gonna make that joke again. I made that joke the previous episode.
It's a good thing they didn't catch it.
Yep.
Alright, so basically anything that does not have to do with servers, high-powered computers, low-powered laptops or computers, basically anything that's portable, they use ARM. Why?
Yep.
Why? It's because it has a low power consumption while it maintains good performance. So
More bang for your buck.
Yeah. Okay, now the reason why this is such a big deal is because technically it's not compatible with the x86 architecture.
Oh, so it's not using like Intel or AMD's like architecture. It's using a different type entirely.
So basically, you would think that any non-ARM programs or apps would not work. But
Yeah,
here's where
yeah,
the magic
naturally.
happens. Yeah, here's where the magic happens. They have a translation program called Rosetta 2. That
Rosetta 2.
will translate x86 architecture code into ARM code.
Dude, we're living in the future. Cyberpunk 2077, dude.
And get this, as far as I know, the vast majority of programs and apps that you will throw at it, it will run it fine.
Yep.
And yes, it's better than the Intel-based ones when it comes to performance. There's
Yeah,
like this graph. You remember I showed it to you, right?
Yeah, you showed it to me before the recording. I remember that.
Yeah, like where the Apple A14. Well, to put into perspective, the Apple M1, the one that's used for their latest Macbooks, is technically a more overpowered version of the A14, which is used under iPhone 12s right now.
Oh,
And,
yeah, it's all the way up there. It's just all the way up
All
there.
the way up there, it beats the i9 10900K. Yeah,
Yep.
in performance.
So,
So you can say that the most expensive Intel MacBook that you can get last year, technically even this year, pales in comparison to the cheapest entry-level MacBook Air that you
Yep.
can get.
yeah, from the M1 series. Oh my, dude, like, you. I remember the time when like people back then, like I remember when Apple first released their first iPhone, man, and now look how far they've come. Now they're making their own processors that rivals even Intel. Like,
When it comes to designing, they've been designing it since 2001, like custom designs. But if you want to go really back, technically, they're kind of the reason why ARM exists.
dude, it's like the
Kinda.
hype. All right, just to make a little comparison, it's like the hyperbolic time chamber in Dragon Ball Z. Basically, Apple's been training in secret for like years and years. Like, oh, I'm gonna release this new like architecture. Oh, I'm gonna release this new chipset. Oh, and it's gonna be more powerful than anyone else. And while everyone was focused on AMD and Intel, Apple just shows up with these really huge biceps, and they're like, yeah, look at my price to performance. Yeah, now I'm a real contender.
Yeah, you could basically say Apple and AMD
Yep.
versus Intel.
Yep, because all right, we're all right. With respect to Intel, they used to be one of the biggest, like they were the top dog back in the day. But I guess what happened was AMD, like somehow came back with a bang, and Apple themselves came back with a bigger bang as well.
Well, I kinda the same thing that's happening with Android phones and Qualcomm.
What's happening with them?
They're kind of the same with Intel right now, and that they're kind of the reason why Android phones are so expensive now.
Oh, all right, because of the new parts, right?
Yeah, like just because of the chip itself.
Ah, the chip itself. I understand.
Yeah. All right, so moving on from what the M1 is, let's do some performance small talk, like what the M1 is
performance.
capable of for the MacBook Airs and
Let's
Pros
check
that
under
run
the.
M1.
All right, it looks good, it feels good, but let's check under the hood to see where the real power lies.
Well, the real power lies in battery life.
Ah, the battery life. Absolutely. I just hate it when like you're using your phone for like 2 hours and then you can just see it's down by 30%. Absolutely. Dude,
It's actually worse for gaming laptops.
they
It's
eat up
actually
so
worse.
much power.
Yeah, I mean, this laptop that I have, a Dell G3, is classed as a gaming laptop.
And it eats up so much power, I assume.
It eats up so much power.
Well, it's reasonable since it has a lot
Yeah.
of like high-end like parts in it, or just parts in general built for gaming, and you know them, they always eat up a lot of power. And that's usually the problem with like parts, is that sometimes they're not really efficient for power. But since technically in 2020, I think they've addressed a lot of those issues.
Yeah. Speaking of, just for comparison, the battery endurance promised by Apple, at least promised, is up to 18 hours of continuous use with the M1 MacBook Air.
Yep, so that means that I can now watch Netflix for 18 hours straight before charging. Yeah, hey.
Hey. Alright, the M1 MacBook Pro, on the other hand, promises up to 20 hours.
Yep.
That's like an extra 2 hours.
Oh yeah, so absolutely. So that means like you're gonna maximize your productivity without worrying about charging like your like Apple for long periods of time.
But here, there is a comparison between the two and the Intel equivalent.
All right, so what's the
They're
comparison?
still selling the Intel i5, Intel i7 MacBook Pros.
All right, and what's
You
I
can
want to know
still
the
choose
difference. I want to know the difference. All right.
Battery endurance promised by Apple for this is up to 11 hours for the MacBook Pro.
For that one that uses the Intel processor.
Yeah, 11 hours.
Dude, that's almost a 10-hour difference. Like a 10 or 9-hour difference, dude.
You want to compare this to my Dell G3?
Absolutely, go on.
Based on my usage, and get this, my usage right now on a gaming laptop is basically just essentially schoolwork. So just documents and the
Documents, slideshows,
yeah, the
pretty much
occasional
anything.
social media. And how long do I need to, how long do I work off charge before it wants me to charge it again?
Yep. How long can you work before you need to charge it, basically?
3 hours.
What? Yep. That's how far technology has come. Aside from being really fast, now it's also power efficient, which is nice.
Oh yeah, speaking of specs, the only thing I could talk about, well, the only notable thing that I can talk about is that you could take it up for up to 16 gigs of RAM and up to 2 terabytes of storage. So
Wonderful,
make that
dude.
if you
All right. So I mean, even if it looks that, even if that looks that way, I mean, it still works. So that's always
still
something
works.
to keep in
I
mind.
mean, the Macs and the MacBook Pros are basically just used for productivity. I mean, why would you game on it? Why would you game on it?
Absolutely. Why would you game on it?
And
They're
it's the same thing with like office laptops. Like, why would you game on there?
They're made specifically for work. Like, you're not supposed to game on them. They're made for productivity purposes. Because a gaming laptop is a lot different than a work laptop. Because a work laptop is supposed to be power efficient, while a gaming laptop, well, back then wasn't really like power efficient.
Well, you could say the reason why they're not really that power efficient is because
The parts.
we trade power for battery life.
Yep. We trade power for battery life, more or less. Like, just performance, dude.
Yeah, so it would be a bit strange to say that a work laptop like a MacBook or something else like an Asus VivoBook, I guess, where you would complain, why can't it play games? Why
Oh.
can't it play games?
That's not what it's built for. It's
That's not
built
what
for
it's
that.
built for. If you want to complain about it not being powerful enough for like Premiere Pro, then that is a valid.
Yeah, that's
a
a-
valid criticism.
That's a valid criticism, absolutely.
Yeah, but if it's a criticism for it not being able to properly run games, then I don't think
That's
It's
not
a
really
good-
it's not a
I
valid
don't think
argument.
It's not an app comparison.
Yeah, because it would be like buying a truck that was made specifically to hold cargo, and you're complaining that it's not as fast as a Ferrari. Like, dude, that's not what it's built for.
Or basically, or I think a more apt comparison would be buying a city car. You know, the really small cars.
Oh yeah, and then off-roading with it. Oh no.
Yeah. And then
Say
trying to go
goodbye.
off-roading.
Say goodbye to your exhaust and your wheels and your underside.
So, oh yeah, speaking of the specs, let's go through the ports.
All right, this parts. This is the real like meat and bones of whatever's inside the new Apple laptops.
Yeah, because I'm talking about ports.
the ports. All right.
The ports. Of course, since it's a work laptop, a productivity laptop, you would need ports. Definitely.
Yeah, ports. Of course you'd need them. How are you going to
No,
use
like
your
how
devices?
many ports? How many ports? Well, sad to say, they downgraded the number of ports.
How many?
Well, from 5, it now became 3.
Is there a reason why they made it 3?
I think it's probably they're still testing the waters of the M1.
So it's like...
Since it is a first generation.
So they're like figuring out what they can get away with. They can see what they can get away with.
Yeah, because there's a valid argument to be made for first generation devices such as this one. Do not jump into it if you don't know what you're getting into.
Absolutely. Don't jump into something unless you know what you're jumping into, like what you're getting
it's
into.
essentially like beta testing.
Yep, they're just testing
you're
how
buying
far you can
into
go.
it. You're buying into it for the innovation and what it's capable of now. If you want something that's more streamlined and more fleshed out, just wait for next year's.
Waiting for innovation, just like sliced bread.
Since sliced bread. All right. Let's get back to ports. So for the M1 Air and the M1 Pro, on the left side, and what I mean by left side is when it's open. All right, when you have it opened and you're facing it. All right. You get what I am?
Yeah, I get it.
What I'm talking about?
So basically,
For
if
the
it's
left
open
side,
and like you're looking at it, like you're on the left side, got it.
Yeah. On the left side, you'll find 2 Thunderbolt 4 ports.
Oh, is that like the Type C ports?
Yeah, it's Type C.
Yeah, the Type C ports. Yeah, I remember. Yeah, I know.
It's also USB 4. So
alright. So that's usable.
yeah,
Usable.
that's not confusing at all.
Not confusing at all. Absolutely.
And on the right side, you only have the lonely 3.5 millimeter jack.
Wait, headphone jack? Is that correct?
Yeah. Only the headphone jack is on the right side.
Understandable.
Yeah. Now let's compare that to the Intel-based MacBook Pros. On the left side, you get 2 Thunderbolt 3 USB-C ports. 2 of them
Understandable.
on the left. On the right, you get 2 Thunderbolt 3 USB-C ports and the jack.
Oh, so okay. So it's basically only 3 ports for each.
Yeah. 3 ports for each, unlike the 5 for the
So
Intel MacBook.
basically, you're gonna have to play snakes and ladders here and buy a lot of ports to just connect all of your devices to, like buy additional ports just for it to work. So you're gonna have to make like a train of just ports to make sure you can put you can fit your mouse, your keyboard, your headphones.
You know those what do you call those? Those USB hubs.
Yep,
Yeah,
the USB hubs. You're gonna have to
you're
buy
gonna have
those.
to invest on one.
Yep. I mean that's one downside to that, but again, you can argue that this is just new technology. I mean, for what it can do, I'm pretty sure that's a pretty fair trade-off. And besides, they're just testing the water, so you can't really give a valid criticism regarding like, oh, it doesn't have enough ports, so it's not good. But people forget that this is like again what we mentioned before. People are just testing the waters. Like Apple is just testing the waters to see what they can get away with.
It's the same thing with the Lenovo ThinkPad X1 Fold. You know,
The X1.
folding
Wait, is that
laptop.
the tablet
the folding tablet laptop?
laptop and tablet in one? That also
Yeah.
turns into a book.
X1 Fold, yeah.
Yeah, it's the X1 Fold, and it's basically the X1 Fold. Like, yes, it can fold. Like, it looks like a giant tablet, but it can fold. Like, the screen itself folds. And people say like, oh, that the problem is sometimes they say, oh, sometimes it can be slow, or like I have to buy a separate keyboard for it. But people forget, this is just like, it's innovative, yes, but they're again testing the waters to see what works and what doesn't.
Yeah, see? It's all about innovation.
It's all just about testing the waters, seeing what you can get away with, seeing what works, and just cutting out the stuff that doesn't work. I mean, it's always been there for years.
Yeah, and plus Apple is known for, taking away ports.
Yeah, they've mostly been taking away ports and doing this,
Yeah.
doing that.
Doing this, doing that, and the industry follows.
Yep,
And speaking of the Lenovo ThinkPad X1 Fold, I don't think it even has a headphone jack. So like a tablet, and essentially, so it's basically a tablet.
It's more or less
Alright.
a tablet, yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's essentially just a bigger Samsung Galaxy Z Fold.
Yeah, and just a little more on the X1 Fold, like at least Lenovo's X1 Fold is, it's one of the most like revolutionary pieces of technology I've ever seen. Because yes, folding screens aren't anything new, but what makes it so unique is for the fact that you can use it as a tablet. Like there's a tablet mode and a laptop mode. That means that it has the size of a tablet when you don't fold the screen, and when you fold it, it becomes a mini laptop that you can attach a magnetic Bluetooth keyboard to on the screen itself, and it turns into a mini laptop, which I find honestly one of the best parts about it.
Yeah, I saw like a review on it. It's really good. Though it being a first generation device, I'll have to say the same thing with the M1 Macbooks and the Mac Mini. It's that you're buying it for the innovation, for being the first into it.
Yup, it's the first generation, so if you're gonna run into
don't expect that when you run into a problem, don't say we warned you.
yeah,
That's essentially
in other words,
yeah.
mileage may vary, right? It depends on preference itself.
If you know what you're doing and you know the risks, buy one. If you don't, then just consider waiting until next year's, or just buy the previous generation if that's what you want.
More or less you can't really complain. Like, okay, this part of this laptop doesn't work because you're buying it again for the innovation, and if there are problems, well, there's nothing really you can do about that.
Yeah. So if you just want to do it now, then I'm not stopping you. But if you want it, if you expect it, if you expect it to be as streamlined as possible, as smooth as possible, then I really suggest you just have to wait for 1 more year or 2 more years for the 3rd generation if you want to
If
be
possible,
really
like
particular.
if you want to be really that particular. So anyway, yeah, I guess that's it for the
That's
tech
it,
section.
yeah. I guess that's it. That's all I
All right,
have.
so well, that does it for the tech section. And that's all we have for our 9th episode of Tech Talk. We hope you enjoyed.
And as a note, this may be our last episode this 2020. We'll likely return though for more tech and games this coming 2021, so don't fret, we hope to see you there.
As always, we'd like to thank Jared Hortalesa for providing the background music. But wait, there's more. Since this is gonna be our last episode for 2020, I'd like to thank the entire cast that worked on the Tech Talk podcast and made it possible this 2020. Alright, first let's start with the researchers. Thank you for our researchers, Andre Cordera and Ethan Tamundong. Thank you to our content manager and researcher, Sergey Magno. Thank you to our editor, Rafael Vallejo. We love you, bud. And thank you to the hosts of the podcast for making it possible. To me, Earl Eustaquio, to my wonderful co-host, Joshua Redita, and to our games manager, Angelica Pablo.
So we at Tech Talk and iPodcast, we wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
This has been Tech Talk, and that's all we wrote. We'll see
see
you
you
next
next
time.